Aș dori să-i dau cuvântul profesorului Sebastian Brock, care ne-a făcut onoarea și bucuria de a fi împreună cu noi astăzi online. În urmă cu câțiva anișori, cred că era prin 2016, dacă nu mă înșel, profesorul Sebastian Brock a fost cu noi fizic aici în România și atunci a avut o prezentare foarte interesantă legată de rolul Maicii Domnului în spiritualitatea siriacă și după aceea influențele acesteia în gândirea teologică a părinților bisericii. Dear Professor Sebastian Brock, we welcome you here in Timișoara for the third or fourth time. I remember that a couple of years ago you were with us in person, and we were very happy to hear a paper that you presented to us on the role of the theology of Our Lady, Mother of God in Syriac spirituality. Now we would love to hear a couple of words from you related to this new book that we published in Romanian, Universul Parintilor Sirieni, and I hope you can see a part of us. I'm here.
Yes. Yes, thank you.
There is a bunch of people here, quite a lot of people who are looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, and it was such a joy being with you in Timișoara whichever year it was. I'm very bad at knowing which year what happened in, but anyhow, that was a great pleasure, and my wife and I really had a wonderful time, and your wonderful hospitality. Well, I'm not quite sure how to start this because whether to go back a long way or whether to just go back to the prehistory of the book. Perhaps it would be helpful to go back a long way. The book was originally published in India. Now, that may seem surprising to many people, but in Kottayam, in Kerala, that's right down in the southwest part of India, there is a research institute called the St. Ephrem Ecumenical Research Institute, which was founded by a remarkable man, Father Jacob Tekeperambil, in the, I suppose it's the early 1990s. I had known him for quite a long time previous to that, even before he went to Paris to do a doctorate on a liturgical subject, Syriac liturgical subject, and then he went on to do a postdoctorate period in Germany and was able to make very good contacts with all sorts of people. And from the first, he was very keen to found a center for the study of Syriac in Kerala, because traditionally the Syriac churches in Kerala, which are very numerous, there are about over 5 million from the Syriac traditions, more than that actually, but they're divided up since, I'm sorry to say, the European presence in India. There are now 8 different churches of very different sizes. And the problem today is the loss of this close link with the Syriac heritage for various reasons, which I won't go into. Anyhow, when Father Jacob got back to India, he immediately founded this institute and instituted a 4-year cycle of conferences. And I've been to all but one. There's one in September, which unfortunately I'm too old to go to. But these conferences started out fairly small, but they always had a European presence, and they became more and more international as time went on. And the last one I went to was most impressive, a large number of people from Europe, America, and elsewhere, from Ethiopia and So it was a wonderful occasion. One is wonderfully looked after. Father Jacob got very good architects to build the buildings. They're ideally suitable for the Indian climate, which is very humid. And he's built up a library, and they have their own publications. These publications started off as correspondence courses for a taught MA degree. And they have at various times, and this is still the case now, they have a link with the local university, state university, the Mahatma Gandhi University in Kottayam. So they are, as it were, an institute of an Indian university, but then otherwise they're completely independent. And they have this MA course, which I helped design the course, and I've written quite a number of the course books. And this particular book, which is now translated into Romanian, started out that way. It was one of the course books to introduce students who had some knowledge of background, but wanted an overall view of Syriac literature. So I thought that one way of doing this would be to have a rather summary guide to the main writers, just a little bit about them all, and a bit about the background and different genres. And I was very keen to have a section with excerpts from these writers so that readers, students could find out for themselves what sort of literature there was available. Because for various reasons in Kerala, despite the Syriac churches having the Syriac tradition, there's very little local knowledge of the literary tradition as opposed to the liturgical tradition. So that really is the background of this book. It's gone through, I think, you have in Romania now probably the third edition, or the equivalent of the third edition. It was taken up in America by the Gorgias Press. I think they've only done 2 editions so far, I can't remember. But the Gorgias Press has published quite a number of these things published originally in India. The benefit of having them published in India is that they're very cheap, whereas if you have anything published in the West, it's very expensive. But there is a downside in that it's very difficult to get hold of things unless you actually go to India. So if you want to get cheap copies they have a large number of publications now, very good ones. It's worth going to this conference in Syria in September, which alas I shan't be at, but I'm sure they'd be delighted to have visitors from Romania. And it's always a great experience because especially at the opening, you have bishops from all the Syriac churches. It's very colorful because they have a rather gaudy pink, violet, yellow robes, and it's a wonderful sight. And the hospitality is wonderful, and the site is wonderful. It's a quite unique experience. It's unlike any other conference. So that is really the background to that book. I don't know what further you'd like information about the background. Perhaps there are questions people would like to ask, or I'm happy to try and do anything that you would like.
Thank you very much indeed, Professor Sebastian Brock, for your presentation. And it's very interesting. I think our edition is been somehow unique.
It is, you're right. It's It's an updated one of the updated latest one from India, I think, if I remember rightly.
And for us, it was very interesting to discover the depth of this Syriac spirituality through that chapter of the book, which is related to the prayer of the heart and the purification of heart. And I was wondering if you could tell a few words about this concept of heart and purification of heart in...
Yes, thank you. This is a very central theme in many Syriac writers, monastic and non-monastic, of Syriac spirituality. And basically, it goes back to the biblical text where the heart is the center of the person, the center of the intellect, as well as of the emotions. The division that we, at least in the West, are familiar with of the intellect and the brain and the emotions in the heart, that actually is quite a late division. It's said to go back to St. Bernard in the Middle Ages. So in the Syriac texts, the heart is also the center of the intellectual faculties. So it's the basic center of the person. And that's a very biblical concept. And it's also found in Greek texts, of course. So the cleansing of the heart, perhaps it's easiest to start with St. Ephraim. St. Ephraim has his own particular theological vision of the spiritual world. He's, of course, inheriting the biblical viewpoint, but he actually speaks more of the eye of the heart rather than the heart itself. And it's this eye of the heart which needs to be kept in a state of purity, cleanliness, if it is to see the aspects of the spiritual world that are around us, both in nature and in the biblical text. And so his ideal is what he calls the luminous eye, the eye that's perfectly clear. And in one of his very beautiful poems on Mary, the Mother of God, he speaks of the two eyes in the world. One is that of Eve, which can't see properly, and the other is of Mary, who can see properly. The luminous eye of the heart needs to be kept in a state of purity in order to see what he calls rase, the mysteries or symbols, which are absolutely everywhere present in the world around us, in the biblical text, in nature. And these symbols provide the linkage between this world and the heavenly world, and between past, present, and future. So they're multifunctional, and they, as it were, explain how the divine dispensation works. You can see, as it were, the workings of it if you see these rase and able to perceive them properly. But you do need to have the luminous eye as clear as possible. And that is a process of continual cleansing. I rather like to think of the imagery of everyday imagery, which the Syriac writers liked, but this is not an image that they use very much. But scrubbing a saucepan that has got burned, if you've tried cooking ever and had a failure, which I every now and then have, and the stew or whatever it is gets burnt, there's a lot of fat that's burnt on, and it's however much you scrub, you can't do it all. But with the help of some sort of detergent, that is a great assistance. Now, the detergent corresponds, as it were, to the action of the Holy Spirit. So this is follows the pattern which is so omnipresent of synergy, of cooperating between the individual and the Holy Spirit. And the detergent won't do it alone. You have to put in a great deal of hard work polishing the saucepan to make it shine again and act as a mirror. And so it's a continual process of polishing this saucepan that has got burnt, and the burning and all the burntness is the accumulation of sin in one's life in the past and in the present too. The imagery that they do use, which fits in very nicely, and Ephraim uses it himself, is the heart as a mirror. Ephraim actually speaks of the heart, the eye of the heart, looking into the mirror of the gospel. So the gospel acts as the judge of one's life. So if you're not living up to the gospel ideals, you will see that in the mirror of your heart, provided it's clear and can see. Later writers speak of the mirror actually of the heart. And in this case, the mirror, if it's in a pure state, reflects the image of God in which we are created, but which we have caused to be spoiled and marred by sin. And so it's the same process of cleaning. There's a special verb that's used in Syriac, marak, to polish away the mirror of the heart, or the mirror of the eye into which it sees, so that the eye sees clearly the rase, the mysteries that link this world and the next world, the heavenly world, and which provide meaning to life. So it's very important to try and see these rase, otherwise life doesn't seem to have all that much meaning. So the more you see of the rase, the purer one's heart is, the more one sees, the more one appreciates the wonders of the divine dispensation. So those are the sort of ways that the heart is understood in the Syriac tradition. What you don't have, although you have the phrase, the prayer of the heart, as very common in Isaac of Nineveh, for example, it doesn't have the connotations that you would have in the Greek and Slavonic tradition. So there's no specific prayer of the heart, like as in the Greek tradition. What you do find is the exhortation in Isaac and other writers to use short prayers repeated. But these short prayers, there's no one formula. And so it's left to the individual. And sometimes these writers will suggest a short form, but it's not, as it were, the standard form. So that's probably a very bad explanation. Apologies.
It was a wonderful explanation, and it reminded me of one fragment of the book, the part with the polishing and with the detergent. Well, we thank you very much indeed for being with us today, Professor Sebastian Brock. Now our Zoom account will cut us off soon in 2 minutes, so I take advantage of those 2 minutes to thank you for the book. Now we will move with our meeting at the second stage. We have invited here with us Father Agapie Corbu and Professor Daniel Lemeni. And they will talk about your book, about the Romanian version of the book.
Oh, thank you very much, and thank you so much for this invitation. And I hope you will enjoy the book.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.